All right, this is a brief review of the ArcMAP desktop. I just want to make sure that everybody is familiar with the way it's laid out and some of the key features. Again, some of these things you may have forgotten, especially if you take the class, the intro class, more than a semester ago. So I just want to go through some of the things in the terminology that I'll be using in class. First of all, I want you to think about it first as the table of contents here. Again, this lists, and we're going to look at the different ways the table of contents can be viewed. But the table of contents, in a sense, says what data is available to work within the map. Then we have here the active data frame. I also kind of simply call this my data analysis desktop sometimes. Up above are our toolbars, and to the side are the other environments that are active. And you'll notice I'm going to move through these: catalog, search, and the Arc toolbox. Now you'll notice that as I move through them, they move in and out. I'm going to move off this one, and you'll notice that this will go away as I move through. Now we can make these either stay. You'll notice right now, if you go up into the corner, you're going to see this little thumbtack. If I turn that, it's going to stay open. If I click it the other way, it'll fall back away when I'm not actively using it. So again, we have our other environments here on the side. In my case, I've put them here. You can put them wherever you want. And then we have, again, if you will, our data frame and our table of contents. Now I want to go back to the table of contents, and I want to point out a couple of different ways that you can see that. First of all, in the table of contents, there are really 4 different environments. The first is listing layers by drawing order. Now, the most important thing to remember here is that, in fact, these are showing them as they're drawn. What's on the top is drawn first, and everything else is underneath it. The other important idea there, though, is that we can drag things into different orders. So, for example, I'm going to take the block groups, and I can drag it up, and now you'll see that if I were to turn it on, that's the second layer drawn. Dentists are drawn first, or I can demote it. The other point I want to make is you'll notice that there are 2 data frames here. The first one I just simply called layer, and the second one I gave the default name new data frame. The second one you'll notice is not bold, so it's not active and we can't see it. Okay, so that's one way of seeing them in terms of drawing order and active data frames. The next way that we can see in our table of contents is to list items or features by source. We're going to see something a little different here. When I click on this, you'll notice that what it shows us is actually the full path name for the data set, but also what we can see is that down here we also have a table that's available. But in the last way of looking at our table of contents, we didn't see the table because it's not something that is drawn. And since it's not drawn, you're not going to see it in that way of looking at the table of contents. The other thing that we'll see here when we look at its source is the types of data that we have, and in a sense their structure. So the first one right here is, in fact, and I'm going to open this up a little bit more so you can see what's going on here. Grab that. I'm going to pull this over, and you'll notice that here this one simply resides within a folder, and we understand then it to be a shape file. The next 3 reside within a geodatabase. You'll notice Butler geodatabase here, and so these 3 reside in that geodatabase. Then this one here resides in the template data. This is actually part of the software, but you'll also notice right here that you see a little different icon. That indicates that this is part of a group feature class, and we've only added one part of it. This is a table, and you'll notice that it exists within a folder here, and it's a CSV, a common delimited file. Now we also see our other data frame, again, that's not active, and we see again the same feature here and here. Now the third way that we can look at our data is by visibility. And what I want to do here is I'm going to turn this on. You'll notice, first of all, before I do that, that block groups is not checked on. When I click on this layer, what you're going to notice, or on this portion of the table of contents, what you're going to notice is that these are visible layers, and then it also indicates the not visible layer here. The other thing that's important here is that each of these has an icon that indicates selectable. Now I'm going to go to that. You'll notice over here right now that we see that something is selected. You can see it in that bright teal. When I use the selected option, what the advantage of this is, it gives me the information about those features that are selected. So you'll notice that in these groups, these feature classes, there isn't anything selected. You'll notice right here it says 0 all the way through, and this one is not visible. Up here in this shapefile, in fact, there are 2 features selected, and here they are listed. So the select by table of contents, or the selected table of contents, sometimes can be quite useful in seeing what is selected and getting its information. Okay, so that's the way we can see the table of contents. Now I'll be honest, most of the time I use the source simply because I want to see everything that is there, but that's not necessarily the case. The next thing I want to point out is that you can in fact organize and modify your tools. Right now, I'm going to shut this down just a little bit, you'll notice that I have a group of toolbars here, and to the left on each of these toolbars is a little grip. You'll notice those 4 vertical dots. I can take that grip and I can move that toolbar wherever I want. Now in my case, I like to put my layout toolbar, in fact, at the bottom, and I'm going to explain why in just a minute, but you'll notice that I can then release it. I could also simply take that toolbar and have it floating wherever I want. Either way works, but you do want to organize your desktop for your own efficiency. So I'm going to move it back down here. Now the reason I do that is these tools are associated with the layout view. Now remember, this is the data view. In fact, what I'm looking at is just the data. Lower portion, you'll notice right here, is a toggle between the data view and the layout view. I'm going to click on that right now, and we're going to move to our layout view. The layout view shows, in fact, how this would print as a map. In a sense, this is our cartographic visualization. And I can toggle back and forth here. The other way I can do that, by the way, is up here in the View option. You'll notice Data View and Layout View. I can choose either one of those. When I am in Layout View, one thing that I always want to point out to students is that this is a relatively simple map, but when you have complex data, and especially raster data or LiDAR data, that is memory intensive, if you will, oftentimes it's much more efficient to work in your layout in a general layout view. And so I'm going to click right here, and what you'll notice is that the draft mode essentially gets rid of the data and simply looks at how the data frames are laid out on the page, if you will. And again, it's much easier to organize your map that way, and then only when you have your data frames in the right place do you then go back to the data view that is now kind of our normal view. Okay, and so again, what we're going to do is we're going to move back in and out of this. Toggle here, toggle there, and we can move back and forth. Okay. Now, again, basic idea, we have our toolbars, we have our table of contents, our frame view, and again, I'm going to get back out of this and I'm going to go into using this option into the data view. Remember that our active layer is bold here. This is not the active, and again, I can click on this one, right mouse click, activate it, and we'll go to that active layer view. Now, in subsequent videos, I'm going to walk through some of the other tools. We're also going to be looking at our catalog, the Arc Toolbox, the Model Builder, and briefly Arc Scene. So again, get comfortable with your desktop, organize it the way that is most appropriate for you.